They say you should never meet your heroes in case they leave you disappointed. They don't say never race your heroes in case they leave you destroyed and lying in a heap on the floor. Why are they not saying that? From now on, I'm going to be saying that. It was brutal. So here's the deal. A couple of days ago, I'm flicking through Instagram and suddenly, between The Rock trying to flog me more of his tequila and Lincoln the Bull Terrier carrying a tree, is Coach Greg announcing that he is racing on Zwift in a race that took place last night. And he was asking for anyone that wants to join in to do so. And not only that, he's invited his channel editor and brother Steve, the Vegan Cyclist, and Erik the Electric. If you're thinking, who are they? I'll get to that, but trust me, they are some serious cyclists and big-time YouTubers. The race itself was to take place in Category B around Innsbruck Ring, just over 9 kilometres, so around 13-14 minutes. I like the really short races more, but in Zwift terms it's hardly a long race, so the distance is okay. The main problem with that course is the bloody great hill halfway round. I'm going to take you through it in a moment, but first of all, who am I racing? Coach Greg Doucette, IFBB Pro. He was a competitive cyclist before the bodybuilding. Over 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, and I think he might have a book out.
Get the cookbook. Buy the freaking cookbook. Don't forget, buy the freaking cookbook.
He is pretty much the reason I have a bike, certainly the reason I use Zwift. April last year, I'd not sat on a bike in 30 years. I thought about indoor cycling when the gyms shut for COVID, but I was worried that although it might keep me fit, I'd end up getting too skinny and look like a cyclist. Then I see Greg's channel. He was at the time a good C category rider and clearly not skinny. Next thing I know, I've got the bike, I've got the TV, and I'm off and running, or cycling. Now since then, and especially this year, he has really got stuck into the bike and moved up to a B category, and a good B at that. On paper, we're not far off each other in pure watts, but he's over 20 pounds lighter than me and about a foot shorter. So Zwift algorithm takes his power to weight ratio and his aerodynamic advantage and turns him into basically a much faster rider than me. And his brother Steve, who edits Greg's channel, another top-notch B category Zwift rider. Him and Greg seem to go back and forth with who will beat who on any given day. Then the Vegan Cyclist, somebody I followed for a while now but paid real attention to lately because I'm also plant-based now, and so it's been great to see someone crushing it in an endurance sport on the same diet as me. And he is crushing it regularly at the top of Category A races. He is a step above anybody else in this race. In fact, I've seen him race Greg before, a year ago, a much shorter race where Greg's sheer power might give him the edge, and the vegan beat him. And not only beat him, finished the race chuckling to himself while Greg was flapping about on his bike looking like he was having a seizure. Bottom line, he is not crazy powerful, but he weighs about 150 to my 220. I can't beat maths. I should also add, the Vegan Cyclist is not his real name, but I'm assuming like Lady Gaga or Captain America, he doesn't use it when he's on the job. So in this context, the vegan it is. And then Erik the Electric. Now I'd never heard of Erik, so I checked out his YouTube. He's got 1.5 million subscribers. I think, okay, this guy is someone to take note of. And I scroll down through his videos and it is a non-stop stream of crazy eating challenges and the most colourful thumbnails I've ever seen. So I'm thinking, what the heck is this guy even doing in the race? So I Google him. Turns out he used to have an eating disorder, overcame that, and now looks after his health and fitness, including cycling, but is famous for eating junk on YouTube. That is a thing you can do for income to pay the bills. Who'd have thought? If only YouTube had been around 20 years ago, I'd be rich. Some of his meals are what I'd have called breakfast back then. Anyway, just as I'm about to write him off as a threat, I scroll down his Instagram, and first of all, he's at least sat on a bike in some of his photos amongst lots of food pictures, but more interestingly, a few years back, the guy was deadlifting 500 pounds. Clearly he is powerful. That is a bigger deadlift than me, and I have a bigger deadlift than Hugh Jackman, which is not relevant, but it took me a while to get there, so I am mentioning it at every chance I get. So, who knows? Erik clearly has more to his abilities than eating lots. He's stronger than me, he's lighter than me, and on Zwift that can translate to being quick. And seriously, his thumbnail game is on point. They look like they've been designed by a combination of a 5-year-old and a marketing genius. The man clearly knows his YouTube audience. And then me. In case you're new to this channel, a real quick background is this. Very, very fat for years, got to my mid-30s and decided that 350 pounds was too heavy for a human, so I started running very, very slowly. I'm now 47 or 48, can never remember. I do all sorts of sports and activities now, and I just try and be above average at all of them. So whether it is a park run or a marathon or an ultra marathon or obstacle course race, a duathlon or Zwift in here, I try and beat more people than beat me. That is it. I don't take it too seriously. I try and involve my dog, and I try and fit it all in around family and work, because I don't have a million subscribers, so this definitely does not pay the bills. Also, important to note is that right now I am 5 weeks into a calorie deficit. I'm trying to be a bit less heavy because my wedding is coming up in 3 weeks and my wife would appreciate a lighter me. And 2 weeks after that, I've got a 100-kilometer ultra marathon to run that I just signed up for yesterday, and my knees will appreciate a lighter me even more. So I'm down a few kilos on normal, which is good for Zwift, but I'm also not feeling 100% because I'm basically not eating enough and pretty hungry all the time. Oh, and on Zwift, I'm a solid C category rider, and in a short race, I can sometimes get close to the front on those. I have a half decent sprint. I'm normally around the 100 kilo, 220 pound mark with an FTP of about 315. Right now, I'm probably close to the 96 kilos. FTP is probably around 300-ish. Okay, off we go. Now, you can tell I'm taking this seriously because I'm in the pen here with 7 minutes to go warming up. I don't think I've ever done a 7-minute warm-up before in my life, so my races aren't 7 minutes long. I drop a little cookbook joke, try and throw Greg off mentally. I had a couple of jokes lined up for the Vegan Cyclist as well, but I held back on those in case people didn't realise I was vegan too, and so instead of seeing it as friendly banter between plant eaters, they thought I was attacking outrageously his deeply held beliefs, and you can't do a banana emoji in the chat on here anyway, so it wouldn't have worked. And so we are off, and a typical Zwift start, needing to do 700 watts just to hold onto the leading group. I've done a few B category races now, and this is just normal stuff. I do them because although I do badly, and then when I go back to a C category where I belong, they just feel much easier. And it does work because C category races do not start off this hard. There is a significant difference here. And we are all there. I'm looking over on the list of names on the right hand side. I can see all the riders. I've got Erik, Greg, Steve, the vegan, everyone's there. And this pace is hard. Everyone knows this is going to be over in just over 10 minutes. So this is fast out of the gate. And it feels weird to say this because every rider is obviously at home in their garage, in their spare room, in their shed. But there is a buzz with riding with names that you know. I could just sense that everyone was feeling it. My channel is tiny, but I still get people messaging me after races that I'm in with them saying, hey, it was cool to race with someone I'd seen on YouTube. And these guys, especially Greg and Erik, are 100 times bigger than me. Seeing their names pop up as you go past, or they come past you, is exciting. You just felt like everybody wanted to be in that front bunch with those guys. Right, this race is basically broken down into 4 parts for me, with an objective to each bit. Part 1 is this section until the start of the climb, which comes around 5 kilometers in. The objective here is to stay with the leaders until that point. At 220 pounds and not eating enough, I can't get up the hill as fast as a C category rider, let alone an A and a B, but I can at least hope to get to the hill with them. Part 2 is the hill itself. I'm going to get dropped, but my objective is to hold on to the group behind the leaders and not get dropped right to the back. I know there are other C riders that have stepped up to ride in this event too, so there are going to be slower riders behind, but I don't really want to end up that far back if I can help it. I want to hold on to some of the weaker Bs basically, so I feel like I belong in the race. And then part 3 is to stay with whoever I crest the hill with until the end and not get dropped on the flat second part with any excuse would be tired, not gradient. I don't want that. And then obviously the last part, part 4, is a sprint finish. I don't have quite the kick I would normally do right now, but I can still put down some power. So just making sure that I use that and time it to my advantage is the last objective. And during this first part 1, not a lot happens. At just under 3 kilometers, there's a slight 2% gradient section. I make sure I stay right in the middle of the pack so I survive that fine. And then after that, there is a slight downhill section where my weight is a non-issue. I can push back into the pack and everyone is still right there at this point. I've got the Vegan Cyclist coming up from behind. In my head, this is like a ride to the shops for him while I'm having to do 400 watts just to stay in the draft. And then Steve and Greg are right there. Erik close to the front a lot as well. At this point, I was realizing actually with Erik, this is a guy that does not just eat lots of food. No one is still here at this stage unless they put in some serious time on the bike. And then the hill. And my first mistake was assuming I'd get dropped going up it. So I went into it negatively, which is never a sensible, stupid thing to have done. So my second mistake was just before the hill. There is a slight downhill section. I should have pushed really hard and got back into the middle of those top 20 riders in front. With the right attitude, I would have done, but I don't. And so when the hill gets steep and the group immediately gets stretched out, I'm right at the back with the people that are getting dropped off. And almost immediately, me and Erik find ourselves split off of that leading group. And it is damn annoying because they are just there 2 seconds up ahead. But on an 8% hill, that is a mile away. If I'd gone into the hill in the top 5 or 6 riders, then maybe I could have held on to them during the hill, maybe found myself at the back of that leading pack by the time I got to the top of the hill, but then there's a downhill where I could make that up. But I am where I am. And it's not all bad because I can see Erik right behind me. I know that I know that Steve and Greg are gone. So this is now my last famous YouTuber I have any chance of racing with. So I'm pushing hard here as we're approaching the top. He actually comes past me. So although I'm dying at this point, I push hard, 500 watts over the top to try and stay with him. Because I know I only need to do that for a few seconds and then I can super tuck. If he hits the downhill without me and drops some watts, which clearly I know he has the ability to do, he is gone. So I sit right there with him, pushing as hard as I possibly can, waiting until I got enough speed up that I can tuck, and there I go. It is not much of a rest, but it's enough to catch my breath, and psychologically it's nice to just roll past someone who is still pedaling hard. And on to part 3 of the ride, the race to the finish line pretty much, and it was hard all the way, no let up in pace whatsoever. I've really got 2 objectives at this stage. One is to stick with Erik. We are clearly pretty comparable in terms of speed and power, so he's a pretty obvious target for me to have. And also, I don't want to finish too far behind the winners. I don't want to be a minute, 2 minutes off of the leader of the race. Normally, in a regular race, that thought about the people so far ahead wouldn't really enter my mind. What would happen typically is we would group up with other riders dropped off the leading group, form our own little race, and sort of race amongst ourselves, giving no real concern to people that are too far ahead for us to catch. But here, I am very aware of wanting to look like I belong in the race, to be fair, and I'm not miles behind the guys that win it. I'm sure that's also an objective for Erik too. We do pick up some other riders, but we're all racing for the finish pretty much at this stage. In fact, Erik and I go through the sprint section here, 11th and 12th fastest overall, despite being over 20th in race position. So we are faster than half the people that have already gone through ahead of us. Stating the obvious, this still feels very much like a race. We are pushing, and it's also down to under 2 kilometers left now, which is not far mentally. You're starting to prepare for the finish. You can ignore the exhaustion because you know it's going to be over soon. And then we get down to around 1 kilometer left, and there's maybe 5 or 6 of us, and even against B riders on a flat sprint, I know I can beat a lot of them. So all I'm doing here is just watching to make sure I don't miss somebody going off the front. And I'm comfortable racing against any of these guys over 300 meters. And then around 500 meters to go, Erik is just in front of me, which is perfect. I feel well placed. I know my legs are not up to much, but they should have just enough. Also, ignore this guy. He is a back marker from the C category race. Nothing to do with this race. He's also racing outside his para category as well, which is why he shoots off in a bit. Ignore him, completely irrelevant to this race. So 300 meters to go. Remember, ignoring this guy. I was slightly ahead on Erik, which is good. Just got these 2 guys in front of me to get the first one. It's now just me and this B category rider on his colourful little bike. This is where the lack of food shows, because this should be 1,000 watts, not 600 or 700. But it turns out to be just enough. Sprint to the line, got him. And I win my little group. I always like to find a win somewhere. If I can't compete with the guy coming first, I'll compete with the guy beside me. So unless I'm dead last, it means I always win something. Results. Eating plants does not seem to slow you down. The vegan wins. 4.6 watts per kilogram. That is like me doing 460 watts the whole way. Absolutely crazy. And not only did he win, he then jumped into an A category race and came second in that. So while I was lying in the floor in here, passed out, he was warming up to go again. Guy's an absolute beast of a rider. Hats off to him. Very, very impressed. Steve got 4th and Greg got 5th with exactly the same time on paper. So it'll be very cool to watch their videos when they upload them later. That was clearly a very close finish. Both of them absolutely flying. And for Greg to be this fast when last year he was a C category rider is hell of a jump up, and it's not like he's training to just be a cyclist. Clearly, he is lifting heavy weights on a regular basis as well. Anyway, top ride from both of those guys. So after those top 5, there was then another group of about 14 riders that were ranging from 6 to 12 seconds off the leader, and then winner of the losers who are not that far back category was me. 39 seconds off the leaders, 20th place, Erik just 2 seconds behind me. And Erik put out some numbers as well. He had 340 watt average. It's below my 370, but he's much lighter. It's more than Greg. Gave him a 4.4 watt per kilo output, which is not messing about. I wonder if he was out front a lot early on and so working harder without a draft maybe. Clearly he's capable of holding some good figures. And 12 minutes of flat out effort is no easy ride. It was actually a good distance in the end because you did need a combination of decent power but still held for a while. 12 minutes is not a sprint. It's not a sort of endurance test that an hour-long ride would be, but you stick 99% of YouTube fitness influencers on a 12-minute sustained effort like that and they are going to fall apart. Clearly, don't neglect your cardio. Looking fit is nice, being fit is even better. What would be really interesting would be to race all these guys on a flat course where power is just power and hills are not in the way. I think that might be a really close race. And if the vegan did win again, we could then just do a deadlift challenge and just put him in his place while we all throw bananas at him or something. Right, I hope you found it interesting. I will link down below to Greg's, Erik's and the Vegan Cyclist channels. Go check them out. They are very, very entertaining. Their versions of this race may be up soon, so if you want to see how the race looked from the front after the hill, then go watch them. Although more generally, if you just like watching people lifting weights, eating vegan and enjoying junk food, you could watch me do all that and save yourself some time. And my dog is faster than their dogs. I don't know if they have dogs. If they do, mine's quicker. I know Greg's got a pig. Doesn't look that fast. Like and subscribe, please. I have some catching up to do on the YouTube numbers against them, so I need all the help I can get. Or maybe my thumbnails just need more colour. Subscribe just in case. Okay, that's it. I'm out of here.